Welcome to the Acrylic Portrait Painting Challenge Masterclass, lesson number 7, creating realism in your portrait. I hope you're doing well. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Wisconsin, even though it's cold outside. You just love days like this where the sun is shining. And I hope you're doing well wherever you live. We've been working on this portrait here of the rider and the horse for quite a while, and it's really coming along. We're getting closer to the finish line, bringing this portrait home, so to speak. And really like the shading we've developed. I really like the sense of contrast, and that's what realism is all about. In this particular lesson, I'm going to show you how we create realism in a portrait. Now, we've been doing that all along in this process, from the sketch to the blocking in stage to adding more glazes, nuances, and color and contrast, all the way to where we're at now. But this is really where your effort and what you put into your previous layers starts to shine through and reward you for everything you've done. Hey, and I want to say you've done an outstanding job. I mean, there's been so many amazing paintings in our Facebook group. Just wow, the color saturation, the form of the rider and the horse, so accurate, so detailed, so many nice tonal differences between the warm tones and the cool tones. I mean, I just love what I've been seeing, and wow, I don't think we've had a challenge like this where we've had so many artists doing such a successful job in their paintings. Now, that's not to say that if you get stuck, that's a horrible thing. That happens to all of us. I don't really see anybody in our group that's really stuck. Maybe a few challenges. Correct me if I'm wrong, but man, just great job. I want to give you high fives, and I am so impressed with the beautiful work we've been seeing in our group, and so keep that up. You're doing an outstanding job, and in this lesson we're going to continue our process. We're going to develop some detail, and we already have detail taking place, but we're going to continue to add on. And you might have seen a jump in the process of this painting from our previous lesson. I did do some bonus videos that will be in the Realistic Acrylic All Access membership, which I might possibly change the name on that, just letting you know ahead of time. But for now, it's called the Realistic Acrylic All Access membership, and that's where the bonus videos are going to live that we did during this class. There's just a painting takes so many hours to create, and I can't show every hour in these masterclass lessons, though I am trying to show you the highlights of everything we're doing in the most important stages. All right, all that being said, did you sign up for the challenge? Are you new to this channel? Did you just happen to see this video and you haven't signed up yet? Hey, it's not too late. Go ahead and sign up for the Portrait Painting Challenge. It is completely free. When you sign up, you get the welcome kit. It includes the reference photo, palette layout guide, supplies list. You get the masterclass lessons sent to you via email. Also, the camaraderie of other artists taking this challenge with you in the Facebook group. We have a few people who have just started the sketch, so don't feel like you're lagging behind. And one of the nice things too is that this video is on my YouTube channel, so you can go back and you can review it at your leisure. But sign up for the challenge, and that way you'll have the welcome kit with your reference photo with the grid and your supplies list, so you know what you need as far as materials to paint along with us. So go ahead and sign up below. I have a link in the description of the video, in the top comment as well. realisticacrylic.com/acrylic-portrait-painting-challenge. All right, well, I'm going to open up here with a word of prayer, and then we're going to get started. Father, I come before you in Jesus' name. Thank you for this opportunity again to be able to paint with so many artists all over the world. And I just ask that you would bless this challenge. Help me to be able to continue to teach it well. Thank you, Lord, for the excellent job the students have been doing in their portraits. And I pray that would continue. If they hit any roadblocks at any stage, even at the latter stages of the painting here, I pray you'd help them to overcome. And I pray you'd help me to make this lesson very clear and beneficial. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, well, let's begin. So I've got the usual lineup of paints here on my palette: raw umber dark, burnt sienna, raw sienna, phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, naphtha red, organic orange, Indian yellow, and titanium white. And last but not least, I have my matte medium. So we are ready to go. What we want to do is, I mean, there's many things we could do. I'm going to try to skip around and hit the most important parts. I think his face is what we need attention on. I mean, that when we're doing a portrait, we think of a face as being a portrait, and even though it's a small aspect of this entire image, it's very important. It's going to be a focal point. You're going to be looking at, you know, the rider's head and the horse's head probably the most when you look at the image. So it's important to make sure we get the right detail, the right forms dialed in, right colors for that face. So let's go ahead and switch to the other camera, and I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here and bring us closer in towards that face. So just give me a moment. I'm going to switch to my other camera so I don't make you seasick as I'm adjusting. And we want to get that as close as we can so you really can see what's going on here. That's probably about as close as I can get it. That face is quite small. So that's what we got. And I'm going to start mixing some colors. I'm going to use a small detail brush. I got a size 2 round. And we already have, you know, a few things mixed, but let's take some raw umber dark, a little bit of titanium white, raw umber dark, titanium white, some matte medium, but we're going a little more opaque at this stage. And let's see. I think we're going to need a little more titanium white. I want to hit some of the cooler tints on the portrait. You know, some of the reflected light that we see on the left side. I might even add just a tiny bit of ultramarine blue just to cool it down a little more. And show this to you a little closer so you can see it. Sometimes that aluminum foil throws off the ability to see these colors. I think you might get a better angle right here. And I'll show it to you also on my white card so you can see it there. So here we go. So that's what it looks like, if you can see that. Or on my other camera, maybe you can see it better. It's got some opacity to it. And we just have to evaluate. I don't know if I'm going to hit it right on the first try. That's pretty good. It's maybe a little too bright though. So I'm just going to tone it down, and I'm going to add a little matte medium to this, which will reduce the strength of how much that glaze impacts. Now we're going light on dark, and that's okay. You keep in mind with the acrylic glazing technique, you don't always have to go dark over light. You can go light on dark. It's still too strong, so I'm going to actually have to change the color. I'm going to add a little bit of ultramarine blue and darken it, and then a little bit of the darker mix that I have below, so a little more raw umber dark. We make just a slightly darker version, and then I better show it to you on the white card. I want you to be able to see maybe a little bit of the difference. It's just a slight difference. It might be hard to see. All right, so now we put that on there, and we want it to be a little bit lighter than the skin tone. And what we're doing is we're showing that the environment around him affects his face, and that gives it more realism. And that's what we're trying to do, is really capture the sense of realism here. So we add a little bit of that slightly more bluish color, and then I'm going to wipe what's on my bristles off, and I'm going to load it up with a slightly lighter version that I had prior to mixing this darker version. That was the first mix, and I'm going to pop that in right here in the middle. If you look at your reference photo, you'll see that it's a little bit lighter right in the middle of his forehead above the nose, and that's some of the reflected light from the snow that we're seeing. That snow reflects a lot of the light. Even the horse, perhaps, because it's a light colored horse, reflects light. So we're trying to show that kind of environment on his face. And we can put a little highlight on top of that other area. Just make sure it dries first before you do that. And maybe a little bit of a light color right there. So we have just these kind of grayish hues strategically placed over the skin tones And I don't have all the skin tones dialed in on his face yet, so I still need to do that. So I'm gonna need to switch gears and get a slightly warmer color. So let's take some titanium white, which will just give it a little more permanence, give it an ability to make more of a change. When you're doing details, you generally have to mix white in with your paint, or it just doesn't get the sense of thickness, or I'm not sure what word to use. It doesn't have that solid look to it. It looks too grainy. So you got to add a little white to it. So titanium white, raw sienna, organic orange, those colors. I'll add a little bit of burnt sienna, which will darken it a bit, and it's not quite as chromatically intense, not as vibrant. See, this color is not as vibrant as these ones up here, so we use a little bit of that just to tone it down. Now I take that color, and then I'm going to, let me show it to you on our white card. See, that's what it looks like. Then we have to test it out and see if it's going to work. So I put it right above his nose here. And it's not bad, but it's not dark enough. So we need to add some naphthol red, which is a darker pigment, more burnt sienna, a little bit of matte medium to make it fluid. And boy, I gotta spray this palette. Spray this palette. Okay. Now, that should be dark enough. I'll show it to you on the white card again so you can see the difference. See how that's darker than the previous mixture? Okay, so if I add this right above the nose, it's going to give us a nice strong red color, and that's what we want. Now the nose, why is the nose so dark and yet the area above it is not? Why is the nose red, dark red, and yet that part above it is lighter? And the reason is it's all about angles. So his nose is tilted upward towards his hat, and then this part of the forehead is aimed downward towards the ground, and we have that snowy ground, and that snowy ground is reflecting onto that part, but it's not reflecting in this part. It's all about angles. And so when you follow, the reference photo, you're following certain laws of nature, and everything looks correct when you do that. Let's add a little Romber dark to this, and we'll just kind of create a little bit of a change in the mixer, and then a little titanium white, which now makes it more of a almost salmon color. Don't worry, I'll show this to you on my white card again so you can see it right there. All right. And then we're going to, I think, put this in right there on the side. Okay, we got to go a little darker yet. So let's add a little more Romber dark and some alizarin crimson, which is a slightly darker pigment. Strong pigment too. So I'm going to place a little bit right there. Yes, I will show it to you on the white card too. Here you go. It's almost the same as the other one, just a little bit darker. Back to the detail. All right, so now I'm putting in a little shape above his nose wing. And again, the planes of the face, that top angle of his nose wing is reflecting off of the brim of the hat. Now, if he didn't have his hat on, everything in his face would look different, but because he has the hat on, you're seeing more of the true color of the skin. It's not getting the light from the sky, it's not getting the light from the snow down below, so therefore we're seeing these darker colors. And that's how we create this sense of realism. Alright, so now my colors might be a little bit too reddish, but that's okay, I can always change them. I just like to stick with the color I have and kind of work it as much as I can. get as much mileage out of it, and then put another layer on to make a shift if I need to. Because right now I'm really concerned more about the value than the color. Just getting the proper shapes, so to speak. So I think that helps. We want to put a little bit around the ear, and just get a little bit more shading here by the mustache area. Oh, and I think we've got just the slightest little divot right here by the tear duct of the eye. All right, so now I need to rinse off my brush and get a different color here. Just need to get a different color. Again, something for the chin that'll kind of smooth things out. So let's take titanium white. Again, we need that titanium white in such a small area to smooth it out. Raw sienna. I think that will work. Just those two colors, but let me see. Here it is on our white card, so completely different color. I mean, look at that. Just look how much lighter that is than the previous one. But completely different color as we're working on the beard. And we're going to pop it in right there just to kind of smooth out some of the glazes that we previously put down. Put in a little bit right here. Now that's still not even the ultimate color that we need. It's just a step in the right direction. That gets us closer. And now that nasolabial fold, I want to hit that again and kind of smooth it out, get a more accurate color for it. So I'm going to take this kind of reddish color I mixed from before and then mix it into that beard color. And I'm going to add just a little more naphthol red, I think. Maybe just a little bit of raw sienna. I don't know if this is quite the right color. I'll show it to you on the white card. There it is. You can see that. Now we just have to test it out because it has to be a little bit lighter. If you make this color too dark there, it's not going to look realistic. So you got to make sure it's appropriately lighter on this right side. Now here we can turn the form, as they call it, put a little bit of that same color right there just to get a gradation, because we have a difference between cast shadows and surface shadows. Surface shadows are, you know, like if you were to hold an orange or an apple or an egg or a round ball in the light and kind of see the way there's a gradual shift from dark value to light. Cast shadows are where you've got, you know, an object that actually blocks the light completely, and usually the cast shadow has a hard edge and the surface shadow has a very soft kind of gradated edge. So we have a cast shadow being cast from the brim of this hat, and that's what we're trying to show to really capture the realism. Now I got to bring this highlight up because according to my reference photo, we're supposed to see more of that highlight going up into the eye area. So I'm going to take some titanium white and let's see, a little bit of Indian yellow because we want something very chromatically intense. Maybe just a tiny bit of organic orange, raw sienna. That should give us a nice color. I'll show it to you on the white card, so look at how bright that is, and it's got a lot of white, so it really obscured that black line. You can see it's probably 70% opaque. And we'll add this actually to the entire face, because if you remember in our original application, our first application of paint way back from, like, I don't know what that was, lesson 3 or something, we put kind of a bluish glaze over everything. So now we need to, you know, add this to bump it up and give us a little more vibrancy. So you'll notice that this will be actually a little bit lighter than what's beneath it. But I'm bringing this highlight up higher here, and I think that's going to really, yeah, that's going to really increase the realism. I'll have to do a little bit of blending in that area, and then here we've got a gradation we've got to put in. And I'm also adding this glaze to the nose just to kind of shape that nose, although I will have to put some shading on there and make some adjustments. So let's make a gradation. Let's take this glaze we just mixed, add more Indian yellow to it, add a little organic orange. Whoops, not that much. Now I have to wipe it off. And maybe just a tiny bit of raw sienna that desaturates the color a little bit, makes it a little more earthy. A little bit more raw sienna. Okay, so here's the color on the white card. You'll see the difference between that and the other one. It's a little darker. Now let's go ahead and apply this up here on the right side of his face. There is a shadow, so I don't want to bring it up too high, and then we'll just kind of blend that down a little bit into the face. And then I'm gonna bring this up into the nose because I have that shadow on the nose going down just a little too far. I'm gonna bring this in and on top of that nasolabial fold to give it a little surface shading, little gradation, and I'm also going to bring it below the nasolabial fold because that area is supposed to be lighter and that's catching some of the light. And I'm also then going to bring it into this area here on the top of the chin, which should be a little lighter, and I'm going to add a little dimple here. And then here, we already have that cleft chin, but I'm just adding some shading just by putting in these highlights in the right place. All right. Now, I want to put some pink in on the lip. He's got kind of pink lips. Take some naphthol red, titanium white, bit of organic orange, so it's not too red violet. We want to bring it back just a little bit to more of the red orange spectrum, warm it up. Let's add a little bit more titanium white and organic orange. You can see that color. Now, here it is on our white card. And I think if we put that on his lip, that should look pretty nice. Let's see. So right now his lip is like pasty white. Okay, so it's not quite as dark as I thought, but it's a good start. I can follow up with some other glazes, but that gets us going in the right direction. And then I'll follow up with something a little bit darker. Yeah. I think I do want to darken his mustache just a bit, so I'm gonna, take some raw sienna, put it back in that glaze I had from before with a little bit of raw umber dark, tiny bit of Indian yellow, just to give it a little more punch, a little more vibrancy. So we'll take this color here, and I want to show it to you on the white card. There it is. Now you can see some of that. I'm going to zoom in a little bit for us here just so you can see color just a bit better. But there it is. Now I'll go to my other camera, and I want to pop this in right up here just to really get that chroma, that intensity of the mustache. be right. Boy, I think even a little bit more Indian yellow yet. I'm just gonna go like this and just take what was on my brush and then dip it right into the Indian yellow. I want to get that color nice and vibrant. So I'm just gonna add that in like that. And just get that intensity. Now on the other side, on the shadowed side, let's create a color for that. We'll take some raw umber dark and add it to the existing color with maybe just a touch of burnt sienna. And here it is on our white card. Now we're going to add that in on this left-hand side. And there's a hard shadow here on this side too. Now we got to get darker yet, don't we? I'm going to add more raw umber dark, a little more burnt sienna. Yeah, so it's a really strong dark shadow there. And then I'm going to let that kind of trail down a bit, get a little shading down there. I'm also going to use this color right here on that shadowed part of the mustache there. And I'll just pop this in there on the neck area, but it's actually not quite as dark as it should be. That'll have to get darker yet there. Okay, I'm gonna stop off here for the face. And with the time I have left, we'll do some work on some other areas because I don't want to, well, hold on, I want to get that nose. Let me get that nose resolved. Because that nose has kind of a strange bottom to it. Let me just get a nice nuance for that. And we'll take, we'll take a little bit of this color we had for the mustache, add some titanium white, a bit of organic orange, just kind of get a color in between, and show it to you on our white card right there. And then I'm just going to put that on the bottom of the nose just to kind of soften up that hard edge we have there. And that'll work for now. And then I'll put a little nuance for the lip. I'm going to rinse off my brush. And we'll take that darker part of the mixture, add a little more organic orange to it. And then what we want to do is just put this on the edge. It's so important to not color the lip too far in. Just on the edge where you're hitting that darker color, the opening, then you just hit a little bit of this vibrant color on the edge like that, and that really makes it pop. Now it might need some adjustment, and that's fine. In fact, I'm sure I'll probably have to adjust mine more. But it just gives us a little bit of that vibrancy to work with. And then maybe we can take that color and just add a little bit of this. Here's a secret for making realism amazing. You add this vibrant color just at that juxtaposition between the light and the dark shape to give it a little extra pop. That's what we call halation. And that'll really make it even more vibrant yet. So you just take a little bit of that lip color, put it in right there on that edge between the cast shadow of the nose and then the highlight of the cheek, and that'll make it pop. But I'm going to need to stop here on the face just so we can do some other things. But you can kind of get a sense for how this looks, you know, how it's coming together and really adding to the realism of the portrait. All right, so now let's do some work. This is something I wanted to really hit on. Lesson number 7 was some of these highlights on the snow. So I'm gonna just do a little bit of camera adjusting here for a second. Yep, I really want to capture these highlights here in the snow. I think that's going to be so important. Because right now at this stage what we've been doing is putting in a lot of shadows on the snow, and that's important. But now it's time to get in those highlights, and I think that's really going to make a difference. And the coloring possibly could shift a little bit too. It's almost just a little bit too blue. So I want to shift it ever so slightly toward a more violet spectrum. I did that once before. I'm going to do it again. I'm just going to take a little bit of alizarin crimson. Strong color, so boy oh boy, you don't need much. A little bit of alizarin crimson. Just wipe it off on a rag if you have too much on your brush. And also a tiny bit of ultramarine blue. And I'm going to take even a little bit of titanium white just to cool it down. Because the white cools things down as well. Okay, and we're going to create a glaze that we can hopefully shift the color a little bit on the ground and get it to be less of a turquoise blue and more of an indigo. This is what I have in my palette. I don't know if I need something stronger than that. Add just a little more white to it. Here it is on our white card. That might work. So let's test this out. Start applying it. I think that's going to shift things a little bit. So if you're adding this glaze, be careful. Don't add too much white, just a little bit of white, or you could end up really making things chalky, and especially if you're painting over the horse. Notice as I'm painting, and look at the white card, notice how light that is and how it just barely affected that black line. So don't make the mistake of putting in too much white. Just a little bit. We're just trying to shift that color ever so slightly. And if you don't have an issue with the color of your snow, you don't even have to do this glaze. It's just, that's how mine turned out. I want to shift it a little bit. Just a little bit. And I'm not putting on as much as I get in toward the horse. I don't want to obscure that, so I'm kind of painting around the horse. All right, just kind of feathering it in. It does just shift the color a little bit. Maybe it smooths it out a little more too, I don't know. Now with this we have some nuances in the snow. It's not all just one color. And we've got some hints of some more purplish hues and some more aquamarine hues, and it just kind of gives it some visual interest. Okay. So now with that, that'll take just a little bit to dry, and while that's drying we can do a little bit of work on the horse's mane, maybe darken that a little bit, put a little bit of detail in it. That's important. We can take our other round brush. This one's maybe a little more worn out. It's like a size 4 or 5, I don't know, size 6 I guess it is. And we'll take some raw umber dark and ultramarine blue, a little bit more ultramarine blue, and then add a little bit of titanium white. And maybe just a tiny bit of phthalo blue, but it's such a strong color, so don't use too much. Okay, wipe it off on a rag if you need to. I have a rag down here and I just kind of wipe it off, and then I bring my brush back to the palette so I don't have too much in the mixture. And also I wipe off some of it here so I can pull from it there rather than pulling from the side, which almost always gets more paint on your brush than you need. Now we'll take this, just a nice kind of bluish gray color. I'm just going to add a little glaze to the hair, just darken it a bit, add some more contrast to the top. And a little bit down here as well. And we're also going to darken the areas around the rope and darken, you know, the hindquarters a little bit as well. And we're gonna darken the leg a little bit and just try to, you know, bring out a little more shading. Some of the structures on the horse, like you know, we have shadows from the rain and everything, and we're putting that on the side of the face. That's important to capture as well. And to darken that hindquarter a little bit like that. All of that helps. You can also darken the area where the horse's hooves meet the snow. There's some more brownish colors, so you're probably going to have to use some raw umber dark and raw sienna to get the exact hues that you need. But basically just make sure that this glaze here is dry, and it looks like it already is for me. So I'm going to now do some highlights on the snow. So I'm going to take that other detail up brush I had from before and some titanium white, matte medium, and I think I'm going to primarily just stick with white. Yeah, I think I'm mostly just going to stick with the white and see how it looks, and then I might adjust it if I need to. I added a little matte medium to make it fluid. Here's the color on our white card. It's probably about 50 to 70% opaque. And now what we want to do is work into some of these little blobs of snow, these chunks of snow that broke off from the horse cutting a path through, and make it look like there's sunlight shining on those little pieces of snow. So I'm going to start on the left hand side, and if you have any areas that are kind of isolated, you can hit them, and you might have to come in and do more work on the darker tonal values and get more shapes defined. But I have a couple of spots that I can hit, like right here. I can put in a little highlight in there and there, and that is going to really bump up the realism in the snow, providing you've got, you know, enough glazes on the ground so that you have something to work against, or work out of, I should say. It'll look nice. If you don't have enough glazes, your ground is not dark enough, your snow's not blue enough, then you're going to have to do more work on that first. But see, I have this kind of shape already isolated with some of my other mixtures, and now I can put in this really neat little piece of snow here. And then I've got a little track in here. So some of these highlights, they're interesting because you've got some grooves in the snow where one piece is in front of another, and it creates a sense of depth. So I've got a little area here where I can put in a highlight. And we don't have to do as much detail as what we have in the reference photo, but just enough to kind of sell the idea of what's going on. So here I can put in a nice highlight. I'll probably have to do a little bit of work. A little highlight there. Here we've got, you know, a very notable lump. We're putting some highlights on. There's a big clump right here in front of this area where the horse's hoof fits, and I might have to do some more work on the darker tonal values, you know, the shadow shapes. I'll try to do as much as I can here. You do want to make sure that your white is opaque enough. Again, 50 to 70% opaque, so it really makes a difference when you glaze it. The matte medium helps it to blend in into everything, and also to have a smoother texture so you don't have a lot of lumpiness on your painting. Add a little highlight here. So it's going to take a lot of highlights to really make everything look appropriate. But if you get enough of them on there, then it's going to really start to come alive, I think. I think in Wisconsin that I would paint snow scenes all the time, but I truly haven't painted a lot of snow in all my experience as a painter. I mean, I can count probably on my fingers the amount of times that I've painted snow. But it is really just breaking down these tonal values and seeing the different shapes. Okay, so we have a little shape there. So on the bottom, you don't want to put too much detail. Keep the detail probably closer to the horse. I have one lump there, but I don't want to overdo it on the bottom. Just kind of let it break away. And especially here where I want to sign the painting, I don't want to put too much stuff over there. It's going to be visually distracting. But I can put in, let's see, I got a couple of highlights here that I can put in. And let's see, there's kind of a clump right here. Probably have a little too much paint on my brush, it's kind of thick. Just dabbing it a bit. I'm going to just spray my palette quick just so that my paint application is not too thick. Alright, so maybe we can get a little lump in up here. Some of the lumps will not all be white, some will actually have the same color as the ground, so that's something to keep in mind as well. You can use this color now and then shift it a little bit later if you need to. Make some adjustments. There's also a little bit of a powdery texture as well, almost like sand that we're trying to capture. So that might be good to put that in too. I don't have all the little lumps in here that I should have. I'm going to put in something here though. And just having some little, like right here, there's going to be a little blob, like a little tiny snowball, and then another one to the right of it, which I need to put a shadow for, but if I put that in plus the shadow, that's going to add a lot of realism. For now, it's just kind of a couple of dots sitting there. Just put that other one maybe a little bit lower. I guess I have a little bit right here. I do need to add something because I have that big divot in the ground, and where you have a big divot, on the other side you're usually going to have some sort of a lighter shape as well. Spot there, and then right here. And in the background, there's kind of like these snowdrifts. You can hit that area. Maybe you can thin out the glaze a little bit, add a little more matte medium, make it just a little more translucent. So on the white card, it would look like that, a little lighter. And then you could hit some of these areas in the back with these kind of drifts. So up in here, where you have maybe some of these little lines and divots drawn, you can add some streaks. Try to really make them look like random shapes, not too predictable. Just a few little streaks. And notice the angle that it kind of falls at an angle like that. And that's a good opposing angle to these shadows here, and the horse, the way the horse is oriented with his feet like that and like that. So it's a great opposing angle. You want to make sure that you capture that. Don't just have these lines going straight across. So notice the different angles in your reference photo on these little snowdrifts in the back. You can put in little divots all the way up there on the top. And all that is going to really increase the realism. So I'll add some down here as well. And that's good. I think that just adds so much to it, getting in these highlights. I can see it taking shape already. Yeah, I like it. It's not there yet, but we're getting there. We're getting there. There's one little highlight I want to pop in right there. Like its own little mound, like its own little snowman. So there's like a small round shape and then another one below it. That's a little lighter. You might have to add more titanium white to make it more opaque, to go over certain spots. So this is almost completely solid titanium white here. Couple of ridges. But yeah, I think that that adds a lot to it. All right. And then while we have this white on our brush, let's do a little bit of work on the horse. Let's do a little bit of work on these highlights on the horse. So I'm just going to move my camera up, and we're gonna tackle some of those highlights. All right, so hopefully you should have a little bit of white to work out of here, because we did go over the canvas with the glaze, but it looks like I'm almost at white, so maybe my initial toning muting layer was not strong enough. But I think it's still good to cover your gessoed portion with white, even if you've got white on there right now. It's just going to give it a little more vibrance. So like on the ear, you can add a little bit there. Add a little bit right here. And then down here on the body, we can add some highlights in that part. Right here as well. And a little bit on the horse's legs. You can do some work on that part as well, just kind of bumping up some of the brightness. I want to make sure I've got the joint not too strong. I don't want to make it too thick or anything. All right, now add a little bit to this leg on the other side. Just like that. That'll give it a little more punch, a little more vibrance too. And then that rear leg, I'm going to add a little bit of that titanium white to that. And then lastly, I wonder if I should add it to the guy's shirt. Probably could, and then we could follow up with a little glaze. Let's do that. Let's just add a little bit of this to the shirt area. Even though I know it's more of a yellow, kind of off-white, I just want to give it some increased vibrancy and then glaze over it to give it the final look. So that just adds a little more contrast and differentiation of tones between that part and the rest of his clothing. And then let's do those buttons. Add a little highlight right here and then here. And it's not a solid shape, it looks like there's kind of a little texture on the buttons, a little sense of shininess. So you want to make sure that you've got the little divot in the middle. This one here is probably more bright. That last one was just a sliver showing. It's kind of turned at an angle where it's not illuminated by the light as much. So I think that can help, and you can also take this opportunity to do a few other little details that are in white. Just keep that paint really fluid. You might need to spray your palette. Now look how watery I have this white. Look at that. You can see it is very, very thin. But you can take this opportunity to do some other little details, like perhaps you want to, put the rope in here. Get that going. You might want to, although that's not quite the right color for that. Maybe the belt buckle thing here. There's just a few things you could do. And I'm not necessarily ready for all the highlights yet. But if you're ready for them, you can add them in. Like I have to get a few more little nuances in some other spots. I guess I'll kind of put in the frayed ends of the rope right there. Okay, I'm going to need to stop off here and close out this lesson. We're getting close to the hour mark. This is where we're at. So we were able to do quite a few things. We were able to work on the man's face and get some nice nuances there and some more realism. We were also able to do some detail work on the buttons and shirt, and also one of the main things is putting in highlights on the snow and getting a greater sense of realism there, some highlights on the horse, and really bringing this along to completion and getting those nice realistic effects in the painting that can make such a difference. So I really hope you've enjoyed this lesson, and Boy, we're getting really close to the end. We have just one more lesson, and that's going to bring it home. So that's coming up soon, lesson number 8. Please post your progress in our Facebook group of your portraits. I love seeing them. And again, outstanding job. So keep up the great work. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in our next lesson. If you have any questions, leave me a comment below this video. Get a hold of me that way. You can also get a hold of me in our Facebook group, Realistic Acrylic Portraits. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel to get more videos like this. And check out my online school at realisticacrylic.com. Sign up for the Portrait Challenge, realisticacrylic.com/acrylic-portrait-painting-challenge. Sign up for the challenge and be happy to help you paint a portrait you can be proud of. All right, well, I look forward to seeing you in our 8th and final lesson coming up. God bless you. Happy painting. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.